Imagine starting life with barely enough to survive, where luxury feels like a distant fantasy and financial freedom seems reserved for other people. No private jets, no designer cars, no multimillion-dollar homes. Just survival day after day. For many, this is where the story ends. But for a rare few, it's only the beginning. Our story today follows a man who began with almost nothing and rose to extreme wealth. His journey proves a powerful truth. Your starting point does not determine your destination. While most people believe wealth is the result of luck, inheritance, or special connections, his life tells a different story. One built on mindset, strategy, and decisive action. This wasn't an overnight transformation. His path was filled with setbacks, failures, and moments where quitting would have been the easier choice. Opportunities were limited. Resources were scarce. The odds were stacked against him. Yet, step by step, decision by decision, he moved closer to a life most people only see through screens. From struggling to pay basic expenses to eventually purchasing his first private jet. Every phase of his journey required sacrifice, discipline, and the courage to think differently. He didn't just earn money, he learned how money works, how power is built, and how success is protected. By the end of this story, you'll understand that real wealth is not about how much you make. It's about how you think, how you act, and how you position yourself when opportunity appears. This journey proves that extraordinary wealth is not reserved for the chosen few. It's built by those willing to play a different game. He was born into a life where money was always tight and options were limited. His home was modest, resources were scarce, and financial stress was a constant presence. Every dollar had a purpose. Food, rent, and basic necessities came before everything else. Luxury wasn't even part of the conversation. Most people around him accepted this reality as permanent. They believed this was simply how life worked. But deep down, he felt something different. Even as a child, he sensed that there had to be more beyond his immediate surroundings. From an early age, he learned the value of effort and responsibility. He took small jobs, worked long hours, and learned how difficult it was to earn even a little money. These experiences didn't discourage him, they educated him. He began to understand how money moved, how quickly it disappeared, and how important discipline was. What truly separated him from others wasn't intelligence or privilege, it was curiosity. While many focused on short-term comfort or entertainment, he studied success. He paid attention to people who lived differently, thought differently, and earned differently. Books, stories, and observations became his informal education. These early struggles built resilience. They taught him patience, delayed gratification, and the importance of planning ahead. Simple habits, saving small amounts, avoiding unnecessary spending, and constantly learning, created a foundation that would later support massive growth. The lesson from these years is clear. Humble beginnings don't limit your future. In fact, they often create the strongest foundation for long-term success. The most important change in his journey didn't happen financially, it happened mentally. One day, he realized something powerful. Poverty was not just a condition, it was a mindset. And mindsets could be changed. He noticed that many people worked hard yet stayed stuck. They blamed circumstances, feared failure, or waited for the right time. He understood that effort without direction leads nowhere. So instead of reacting to life, he began thinking strategically. This shift changed everything. He stopped asking, "How do I survive?" and started asking, "How do I build freedom?" Every problem became a lesson. Every setback became data. He studied markets, business models, and opportunities with intention, not desperation. Rather than trading time only for money, he focused on building skills and knowledge that could multiply income. He learned how successful people think about risk, not as something to avoid, but something to manage. Decisions became calculated, not emotional. This phase prepared him for bigger moves later. Discipline replaced impulse. Vision replaced fear. He learned that wealth is not created by working harder alone, but by making smarter, long-term decisions. The key lesson here is simple but powerful. Money follows mindset. Before wealth shows up in bank accounts, it must first exist in beliefs, habits, and decisions. Once that shift happens, everything else becomes possible. Opportunities rarely arrive with flashing signs or dramatic announcements. More often, they appear disguised as small, ordinary moments, ideas most people overlook or dismiss as insignificant. For him, the first real breakthrough didn't come from a massive deal or sudden luck. It came from a modest opportunity, a side business, a small investment, or a unique service that solved a simple problem. What made the difference was not the size of the opportunity, but his willingness to act. While others hesitated, overanalyzed, or waited for perfect conditions, he moved forward with calculated confidence. He didn't expect instant success. Instead, he saw this as a test, a way to prove to himself that earning beyond a regular income was possible. The early days required sacrifice. He invested long hours, studied the basics of business, and learned through trial and error. Mistakes were unavoidable, but instead of seeing them as failures, he treated them as education. Every challenge taught him something new about customers, pricing, timing, and execution. Then came the first profit. It wasn't large, but it was powerful. That moment changed everything. It proved that wealth wasn't reserved for other people. It was achievable through smart decisions and action. More importantly, it built momentum. Confidence replaced doubt. Curiosity turned into ambition. He realized that escaping poverty wasn't about one big move. It was about stacking small wins consistently. The lesson from this phase is simple but critical. The first opportunity is rarely life-changing on its own, but it opens the door to everything that follows. Those who act early give themselves a head start that compounds over time. Success didn't eliminate struggle. It introduced a new set of challenges. After his initial wins, reality tested him. Some ventures failed. Certain investments didn't perform as expected. Money was lost, time was wasted, and confidence was shaken. Skepticism from others grew louder. Friends questioned his choices. Some advised him to return to safe paths. For many people, this is where the journey ends. But for him, this phase became one of the most important parts of his growth. Instead of quitting, he slowed down and analyzed every setback. He asked difficult questions. What went wrong? Was it timing, strategy, or execution? What could be done differently next time? Each mistake became a lesson instead of a loss. He learned that failure wasn't a signal to stop, it was feedback. Every challenge sharpened his instincts and improved his judgment. He became more disciplined, more patient, and more strategic. This period built resilience. Emotional control replaced frustration. Long-term vision replaced short-term disappointment. He understood that wealth building is rarely a straight line. It's a series of adjustments. Most people never become wealthy because they quit too early. He didn't. He stayed in the game long enough to gain experience that others never did. The lesson here is powerful. Opportunity creates potential, but resilience creates success. Those who learn from failure position themselves for breakthroughs that others never reach. With experience and confidence on his side, he entered a new phase, scaling and multiplication. This is where his journey truly separated him from the average earner. Instead of spending profits impulsively, he treated every dollar as a tool. Earnings were reinvested with intention. Profits from one venture funded the next. Small gains were used to acquire assets that could grow independently. He focused on systems that produced income without requiring constant effort. He understood the power of compounding. Money invested wisely doesn't just grow, it accelerates. Over time, returns began producing returns of their own. Growth was no longer linear, it became exponential. Real estate provided stability. Stocks offered liquidity and long-term appreciation. Private businesses created control and scalability. Diversification reduced risk while increasing opportunity. Wealth was no longer dependent on a single source. What made this phase different was discipline. He delayed gratification while others chased lifestyle upgrades. Luxury was postponed so freedom could be permanent. This strategy transformed money from income into infrastructure. Wealth became predictable, expandable, and resilient. The lesson is clear. Wealth doesn't grow by earning more. It grows by reinvesting smarter. When patience, foresight, and discipline combine, Small wins evolve into massive fortunes. After years of relentless effort, calculated risks, and disciplined strategy, the rewards of his labor became visible luxury in its most tangible form. Private jets, sprawling mansions, exotic cars, and exclusive experiences symbolized more than wealth. They reflected freedom and control. But for him, luxury was never about showing off or competing with others. It was about celebrating the results of strategy, persistence, and smart risk-taking. Every asset told a story. The private jet didn't just carry him across the country. It carried him to opportunities that others could never reach. Meetings, investments, and collaborations happened faster, more efficiently, and on his schedule. Mansions and high-end properties weren't just indulgences. They were hubs for networking, planning, and expanding influence. Exotic cars were a reward for achievement, but also a reminder of what discipline and patience could produce. Luxury became more than personal satisfaction. It became a tool that reinforced wealth creation. In a way, his lifestyle worked alongside his strategy. By traveling efficiently, networking effectively, and creating spaces that fostered high-value thinking, he turned comfort into leverage. The lesson here is profound. True luxury is freedom in action. It's not measured by how many expensive items you own, but by how wealth allows you to control your time, focus on meaningful activities, and multiply your impact. The rich don't simply acquire luxury. They use it to create more opportunities, more influence, and more growth. Building wealth is only half the battle. Sustaining it requires foresight, planning, and discipline. He quickly realized that without protecting his assets, decades of effort could vanish overnight due to legal risks, taxes, or unforeseen emergencies. That's when he began structuring his wealth like a fortress, intentionally, strategically, and methodically. Diversification was the first line of defense. Investments were spread across stocks, private businesses, real estate, and other high-value assets to minimize exposure to any single risk. Real estate and businesses were often held in trusts or LLCs, shielding his assets from lawsuits, creditors, and market volatility. Insurance became a non-negotiable tool, covering personal, business, and liability risks. Emergency funds ensured that even unexpected financial shocks wouldn't disrupt his long-term strategy. But protection wasn't just about avoiding loss. It was also about ensuring legacy. Wealth planning considered not just his lifestyle, but future generations, ensuring that the strategies he built could sustain family prosperity for decades. Ongoing education, legal advice, and financial oversight were constant habits, not occasional check-ins. Every decision reinforced stability, allowing him to enjoy life without fear of losing it all. The critical lesson: wealth preservation is as vital as wealth creation. Without safeguards, even the most lucrative ventures can disappear. True financial freedom comes not only from earning, it comes from building systems that protect, sustain, and grow that wealth over time. The journey from poverty to extreme wealth is filled with lessons that transcend money. They are lessons about mindset, resilience, and strategy. First, mindset shapes destiny. Wealth begins in the mind with belief, vision, and the courage to think beyond limitations. Without the right mental framework, effort alone will rarely produce extraordinary results. Second, acting on opportunities early is critical. Hesitation can cost momentum, confidence, and potential breakthroughs. Success often favors the decisive, not the cautious. Third, failure is inevitable, but it is also invaluable. Each setback offered lessons about timing, strategy, and risk management. Learning from mistakes transformed obstacles into stepping stones for growth. Fourth, reinvesting profits wisely is a multiplier of wealth. Rather than indulging in short-term pleasures, every dollar earned was leveraged for compounding growth, creating an exponential effect on his assets. Finally, protecting wealth is essential. Structuring assets, planning for taxes, diversifying investments, and using insurance ensures that gains aren't lost to mismanagement or unforeseen circumstances. This story proves a timeless truth. Poverty is temporary, and financial freedom is attainable. But it is not achieved by luck. It requires intentional thinking, focused action, and disciplined follow-through. Anyone willing to adopt these principles can reshape their financial future, no matter their starting point. From struggling to survive, worrying about basic necessities, to owning private jets and living in luxury. This journey shows that wealth is built, multiplied, and protected through deliberate strategy, resilience, and smart decisions. Every setback, every calculated risk, and every disciplined habit contributed to a life most people only dream of. But the real takeaway isn't just the lifestyle, it's the mindset behind it. Wealth is created through foresight, action, and the courage to step beyond the ordinary. It's about thinking long-term, seizing opportunities, learning from failure, and protecting what you build. If this story inspired you, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss strategies that can change your life. Comment below. Which part of this journey resonated with you the most? The mindset shift, seizing the first opportunity, or achieving luxurious success? Remember, wealth is not accidental. It is the result of strategic action, patience, and intelligent choices. Your journey can start today, one smart decision at a time. Every small step compounds into extraordinary results, proving that no matter your beginning, financial freedom is achievable.